Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming. If you are listening on the podcast, and if you are in our Facebook group, Raising Enlightened Children, welcome to Mom Support Time. Mom Support Group, Mom Support Hour. We're still working on a name. But welcome. How are you doing today, Melanie?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Alysia. Hello, welcome in, everybody. We're excited to be back with you. We both, I know Alysia and I were both practicing the pause. We were intentionally this week. Sorry, I just realized my phone but I think it's off, so we're good. So we were both practicing the pause intentionally this week, and we are excited to be back with you to continue the discussion. So hello.
So one of the things that we mentioned last week is, so we talked about practicing the pause, where there's what was the word you use? A stimulus or?
Stimulus. So oftentimes what will happen, right, just to represent us, is there'll be a stimulus and then we react. Like something happens, and with that, it's like that immediate, like boom, boom, like something stimulates us and we react. And what we want to do in the pause is that stimulus will trigger, something will happen. And when we take that pause, we actually can be inside of that pause where we spoke about doing something really intentional. Alysia, I love what you had come up with last week, was using your hand over your heart, or prayer hands for you. That worked for me. It's pushing the pause button on my forehead, which is my reminder. And then inside of that space, taking that breath, thinking about what it is and how it is that I want to respond, be intentional about my response so that I can choose that response rather than just that reaction. And then today, what we want to really talk about is, what do we do when we do just go from the stimulus that impacts us to that reaction that we wish we hadn't had? For me, one of my default reactions that I had when I didn't take my pause, especially when my children were younger, was to yell.
Yeah, which we got a very cool demonstration of that last week.
Well, thank you. Yes, you can see that it's so embedded inside of me that it's something that is easy for me to just literally just act out, because it was something that came so naturally for so long. And it really did take intention and time for me to unlearn that, and it's something that I need to continue to practice and reinforce.
Absolutely. And it's definitely not easy, but that yelling was probably my default reaction as well, so you're not alone.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, and what I witnessed out in public and with my parents that I've taught over, the decades that I've taught them, almost 2 decades that I've taught them, I know that I'm not alone. And I know I'm not alone in how crappy we feel when we go to that reaction, whatever that reaction is, right? That we don't choose, but that's just wired in our brains that we just default to.
So what I started doing before, because I learned to practice the pause pretty much last week as far as a tool that can be used. So I was happy to have that added to my tool belt. But what I was doing was I was having my reactions
And then I started taking the time to, okay, what just happened? What was I feeling? What was I thinking? What was I judging? And so we actually have a tool that breaks that down. So I had learned that on a podcast one time. And go ahead, Melanie.
So Alysia, I just want to, if it's okay. So what it is for me, if I were to describe what you're saying, it's you reflect after. Like you took that time to reflect after. So you didn't take the pause in the moment and then choose your response, which is what the ideal is, right? But if we don't do what is ideal and we do just have that reaction, because we got stimulated, we reacted because of what's going on in our brains, because of the way our brains have been wired, which is a talk for another discussion, right? But that's that automatic reaction. It's not a response, that automatic reaction that we have. So what you're talking about is then the reflection and reflecting afterwards when you don't feel good about how you reacted.
Right. So I didn't, as I mentioned, I didn't have the practice, the pause. So I didn't pause before I reacted. I just would react. And then I felt bad about reacting. And so I learned this tool on a podcast. And then I found out that tool is also in our coaching program. But it's very underutilized in our coaching program, as far as I'm concerned, because the power of this tool is huge. So typically, we were talking last week about the stimulus. So if you're watching the video, I'm pointing to my pinky, and that's the stimulus.
So sorry, Alysia, for people that are not watching the video, if you're just listening, what Alicia's done is she's raised her hand and she's spreading her fingers. So it's like giving a high five, but with your fingers spread. And so you can see all five. You can see all five fingers. It looks like somebody put up their hand. Was that you? Oh, so you were doing.
Zoom decided that we were doing this, so I was raising my hand.
There you go. She raised her hand. So it's like, okay, but in actual physical, so she actually raised her hand. She spread her fingers, so you can see all five of her fingers. So for those of you that aren't watching, if you can just visualize a hand up with all the fingers spread. Okay, go ahead, my love.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And I'm pointing to my pinky. So something happens, and that's the pinky. And then I react. And now I'm pointing to my thumb. And so this is what most people are aware of. We're hanging 10, right? But in reality, there are things that happen between the stimulus and the reaction. And so the things that happen are your ring finger, which is you have a thought, and then you have a judgment, and then you have an emotion, and then you have a reaction. So what we're aware of is the pinky and the thumb, but where our power lies is in between.
Right. So, and in between is when we can, so when you have that, again, I'm holding my hand up, and if you see this, if your pinky is the stimulus and the thumb is the reaction, usually what happens is these three things happen so fast, right? The three fingers in between, which is your thought, your thought, your emotion, your action. Those are the three in the middle, right?
It's the thought, judgment, and
thought, judgment, and feeling. So thought, judgment, emotion. Okay, yes, that's right. So usually that happens. So like you're not even aware of those three things, and it just is like boop. It's like the stimulus reaction, and then it's like this. What I'm doing is my thumb and pinky are coming together. Like it's like this reaction. It's like a quick thing. But when you can slow it down inside of the pause, you can become aware of these three things. Or after the fact, when you're reflecting back to go, okay, I had that stimulus, I had that response, and then become aware of these three things that are inside of what would have happened inside the pause, or what happens inside the reflection after the reaction.
Right. So I'm going to give an example because that helps. So I'm going to use an example that most of us can relate to, getting cut off while we're driving. So I have a thought, so the thing that happens, which is my pinky, is that someone cuts me off. So the thought that happens is probably somewhere along the lines of, someone just cut me off. The judgment is, that guy doesn't respect me. That guy thinks that I'm not important. That guy is a jerk. And that produces a feeling. So if my judgment is that guy doesn't respect me, the feeling that comes up is probably anger, sadness. But typically when we're in the car, the feeling we feel when somebody cuts us off is anger. And so then we have a reaction. So depending on, like, if you're sad or scared or whatnot, then you might be, grip the wheel a little bit tighter, but most likely if you're angry, you're going to react however you react with your anger while you're in the car. I watched my dad for years. He would yell at the people or lay on the horn, or, I've seen some people, you chase that person down because you've decided that they've disrespected you and they need to be punished. So that's a breakdown of how that works. So do you want to give a parenting example?
Well, so I just want to, if we can just finish this and talk about what can we do instead, right? So if the thought, so if we can just finish that, if the thought is, this person just cut me off, what if this person is on their way to the hospital? What if this person, someone is sick and they are rushing, maybe they're taking someone that's in their car to the hospital and that's why they cut me off? Well, then my feeling, right, and my judgment is going to be very different, because starting with my judgment is, it's not about me. I'm not going to take this personally. Something is happening that they're trying to protect someone or they're trying to get somewhere. In fact, instead of feeling, and then the emotion or the feeling, rather than being anger, might instead be compassion, right? Might instead be, wow, like what's actually happening with that person? And you realize it's not about you at all. And so literally nothing changed in the environment. All that changed is what went on inside our head. And when what changes, what goes on inside our head, that allows us to have such a different response and come from a place of compassion rather than anger, even though nothing changed externally. So for a parenting example, it would be, let's say, for example, our kid talks back to us, right? It would be the same thing. My kid talks back to me and I'm like, that is not okay. My child cannot speak to me this way. I'm not, I feel disrespected. My child doesn't respect me. And then I might react by yelling or doing, acting out in a way that is not going to be productive for the connection between me and my child. But let's say,
a lot of times we react to disrespect by showing that same, let's say the action that happened, the stimulus is a tone that your child gives you. And so you have the thought, my child just, gave me a tone, and that means that they're being disrespectful and they don't respect me. And that makes me angry. And so how dare you speak to me that way? Well, I just use the same tone that they used to me. So we're not teaching anything to them in that situation other than whatever's going on in their body right now. They now have the understanding that when I feel this way, my mom yells at me, or my mom snaps at me, or so on.
Exactly. And so if we can slow it down, like even just changing, so really all it is changing their perspective. So inside of that what would be inside of the pause or reflecting. If you can do it inside of the pause, it's going to be ideal, right? So you have that, the stimulus that happened, the child is disrespectful. And what if you can then, instead of judging that as being something that's disrespectful for you, but you can think to yourself, wow, did something happen at school today? Did they have a fight with their friend, or did somebody hurt them, or were they left out at the lunch table when they got to sit down? And now my feeling is going to be very different, right? Towards my child is going to come from a place of compassion and caring. And so my emotion is going to be compassion and caring, because my feeling is compassion rather than anger. And so rather than reacting from a place of they disrespected me, blah, 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 it's more about, wow, what's going on with them? Let me be here for them. And then if I can be in that mode and be there for them to then come to me, then there's going to be connection. And if they're in that space, I might go up to them later and say, you know, what was happening? Or if they don't want to talk about it, then we can talk about, well, this is the way I want to be treated. This is the way I want to be spoken to. So you still, exactly to your point, Alysia, is that you are then explaining to your child in a much kinder, much more respectful way, setting your boundary of what it is you're willing to tolerate or how it is you want to be spoken to, rather than showing them what you don't want them to be doing.
Right. And actually, one of my favorite stories is so the cool thing about this is when you have your overreactions and then you go back and reflect, it serves like a practicing the pause, because you become aware of the thoughts in real time. And so in this exact situation, to my recollection, the first time my son talked to me in a way that I would have classified as disrespectful, I thought, like, it was literally like, whoa, you don't normally talk to me like that. Why are you using that tone? What's going on? And he said, I'm sorry, Mom, I'm in a bad mood. And now I have new information, just like what you said. Like, so he's in a bad mood. Oh, well, do you want to talk about it? And at that time he said, not right now. And he came and told me about it later. But because of the reflection that I've done in the past, when that happened and hormones showed up and he's overstimulated because he's in a bad mood because of something happened for him, I could have said, don't talk to me that way, and shut him down, or do what I did, which is, hey, that's not how you normally talk to me. What's going on? Or that's an interesting tone you just used.
Right. And so what you did was you maintained the connection. You didn't just go straight to correction. You maintained the connection before you went to correction. And then I'm sure, I don't want to assume, but I would ask you, when he then did share with you how he was feeling, if you then wanted to bring up, okay, I totally understand that you could be compassionate, have that connection, and then talk to him about, okay, well, in the future, but he was aware of it. You know, right. You didn't even need to say to him because he got it right away. And so the lesson was already there, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think that we've ever really had to sit down, talk about how to talk to someone respectfully. But we have had talks when he's talked to me disrespectfully, like, hey, what's going on with the tone? That's not how you usually talk to me. So he is learning on his own appropriate ways of speaking to people. And I've never asked him to apologize to me for anything. It's always like, oh, I did mess up. I apologize, because that's also the behavior that I model for him.
So I love that. And I'm going to ask us to put a pin in it, because I know that there are people that we want to bring on live now, and we want to go into our live Zoom room. So we're going to bring this podcast portion to an end. so that people can come in, and the parents that are here, the moms that are here, we can go in and actually have some support time with them inside of the group. And maybe we can pick this up next week in terms of just the makeup and the what to do afterwards.
Absolutely. So there'll be another episode of the podcast on Thursday this week, and we will be back live with our mom support call / podcast on Tuesday next week, Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you are not in the Facebook group and you're listening on the podcast and you'd like to join us live, we go live in Raising Enlightened Children. And then once we end, we jump on Zoom with everyone who's live and have discussions and support, and how can we support you, and how does this apply in your life, in your situation. So
Alysia, while you're getting that in the, it was already done, can people join? I just want to share that next week we're also going to be doing a virtual workshop at, I believe it's 6:30 Pacific time next Tuesday on the 12th on guilt-less parenting, where we're going to talk about some self-care. So if anybody would like to join us, that is also, the sign up is in a flyer on our Raising Enlightened Children Facebook group. So you can get the link there. We'd love to have you join us for the virtual. And also next week, for anybody that is in Los Angeles, at a school in Brentwood at St. Martin of Tours, we're going to be doing a workshop live in person at 9 a.m. At St. Martin of Tours, as I said, in Brentwood, and it's open to the public. So just want to share that for next week, and hope to see whoever can make it at any or all of the things that we're going to be doing. And thank you for being here with us. And I'm looking forward to seeing those of you who are here with us today in a few minutes live in our Zoom room, virtually live in our Zoom room, but it will obviously not be recorded because it is support, and we will go and chat there.
And until we meet again, keep healing. Bye,
Keep
guys.
healing. Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit alysialyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. See you next time.